Hi, I'm Annie. Contact information is in the description. This week, I'm processing something kind of bizarre. There was an accident at night, in the middle of the night, a sleep accident. I'm kind of connecting it also to my sleep processing because I feel like it's a really mundane thing that happened. I fell on a hard tile floor in the middle of the night, which isn't like me. I don't usually fall. But for some reason, it's got my sleep processing in overdrive. My introspection kind of runs automatically all the time, but the reason this feels different is because I feel kind of stuck. Like somehow this unusual event is significant in a way that I'm not seeing. Like there's some message or meaning that I still don't understand about the event. This sounds really weird even to me because it's weird to me to not be processed. So anyway, this bizarre thing happened and I'm still processing it. In the middle of the night, I fell pretty hard on a hard tile floor and it could have been really bad. It wasn't bad at all. I didn't get hurt at all. Didn't even get a bruise, but it was potentially really dangerous. I could have been injured very badly. I rarely fall. I'm not clumsy. I think this is probably because of masculine SI. Sometimes, like, in my history of running and walking, I will trip while I'm running, but I just like recover really gracefully. I don't actually fall and hit the dirt. Like if a pin rolled off the table, I would catch it. If I throw something across the room at the waste paper basket, I make it. I think this is just a masculine sensory thing. So I'm not clumsy. I'm not accident prone. I don't fall. It's very rare. But I also consider part of my sleep process, it's double masculine, FI-SI sleep. And part of that SI sleep processing is really going over safety protocols. Like I'm overworking SI in order to mitigate chaos. And that's one of the reasons that bad shit doesn't happen to me. That's one of the reasons that I don't fall. I don't forget. I don't have accidents because I am paying attention. I'm aware of chaos and danger, and I have protocols in place to prevent bad things from happening. I really, really overwork that. And it works. It's not like OCD or neurotic. It's just that my propensity to prepare and overwork safety is like higher than other people. But it does actually keep me safe in a lot of situations. Safe, organized, and keeps things under control. So next door, where I live with my partner, Russ, is 420 square feet. There's not a whole lot of room in there. So we have a king size bed, but it's lofted up. It's like built on a platform up towards the ceiling. And there's a ladder to get up into the bed, and there's 3 steps. The steps are not a standard depth. So each step up is like a bigger step up than a typical regulation staircase that you would see. So the bed's up pretty high. And it's just on a platform. There's no railings around it. It would be safer if there were railings around it. If someone was prone to sleepwalking or moving around a lot in their sleep and they rolled off the bed, they could be injured really badly. The floor is tile, and there's also a lot of really sharp, like brutal furniture. Russ made all the furniture in the house and it's really beautiful, but this is not a child-safe environment. Like the coffee table is this really intense poured concrete triangle. So it's got like a lot of pointy edges, and like the beam that's holding up the bed is, I think it's ironwood maybe, or tiger wood. It's some really dense hardwood 4x4. So like that's a beam that if you run into, you could knock yourself out. So a lot of brutal surfaces and corners and edges in our house. And normally it's not an issue at all, though technically it is dangerous. It would be dangerous for a child and could potentially be dangerous in the middle of the night if you weren't paying attention. But I am paying attention because I have this really intense masculine SI sleep processing that kind of goes over these safety protocols on a pretty regular basis. I remind myself to never become complacent about safety getting into bed or getting out of bed. Pretty much every night, I remind myself it's potentially dangerous to sleep in this bed. Don't fall out of the bed. Don't get complacent when you're going up and down the ladder. Pay attention. My partner, when he was young, he did sleepwalk when he was a child, and so I worry about him. For that reason, he sleeps against the wall, and I sleep on the outer edge because he moves around a lot and I don't. I sleep on my back with a pillow under my knees, and I just lay there in the same position all night, and I don't roll around. I haven't fallen out of bed since I was a child. And I think then it only happened once, and I remember it. I was about 4 years old, and I fell out of the bed and rolled under it and was totally lost, like totally disoriented, and it's a vivid memory. So he sleeps against the wall, I sleep on the edge to keep him safe because I'm more worried about him in this bed situation. I'm pretty confident for myself that I'm not going to roll out of the bed. And I'm just confident physically in general. I have excellent balance. You know, in my massage therapy work, I'm up on the table using my feet to massage, and I'm leaning back into a strap, and it's kind of acrobatic, and I feel very sure of myself and very confident, and yet at the same time always aware of safety protocols and always reminding myself not to become complacent. It's just this kind of sleep processing self-preservation kind of mechanism that operates within me all the time. And also part of my sleep processing is like a lot of procedures and protocols, and it's not OCD. I don't repeat them over and over again obsessively. It's just like I do them once every night, every day. There's like protocols around different aspects of my day. My partner thinks it's ridiculous when I'm getting ready for bed because there's like dozens of little things that I do. I think it's a good thing because in doing those little things, I won't bore you with all of them, but say for example, wearing the same kind of shirt every night to sleep in and the same kind of shorts, those sensory details cue me to get sleepy. So following all these protocols and steps sort of cues my brain into sleepy time, and then I fall asleep pretty easily because I've gone through all these steps. And we've lived like this for years, and nobody's ever fallen out of the bed, and you know, nobody's ever been hurt in the middle of the night until a few days ago when I fell. So there's 3 steps. I was getting out of bed to go to the bathroom, stepped down onto the first step, I'm standing on the middle step, and I fell back asleep. Standing on the middle step, I just fell asleep. And that has never happened before. This was just a brief split second of falling back asleep. And then when I woke up again, for some reason, I thought that I was on the bottom step. So I used that muscle memory, you know, the muscle memory that I would use if I were on the bottom step. And I went to step onto the floor and totally misjudged and, you know, missed the bottom step. And my foot dropped much farther onto the tile floor. And then that was really disorienting, and I lost my balance and I fell forward. Of course, when you fall forward, your reflexes tell you to put your arms out. And that's good for protecting your brain, your face, your teeth, but you can break your wrist, you can break your arm. So I did kind of land on my wrist and sort of fell to the side and kind of banged my right forearm, but not really very hard. There were no bruises. But I kind of looked up and I was stunned, and I thought, I can't believe that just happened. This is what we've been training for, you know, all that sleep processing, going over the protocols and reminding myself not to become complacent, and something happened. Something bad happened. And I didn't get hurt, but it could have been so bad because I looked up and I saw how near I was to the edge of that concrete table. And then that was on one side of me, and on the other side of me is this really intense hardwood 4x4. I could have hit my head on either one of those things. I was so close to the edge of that table, you know, just my skull could have just hit that concrete edge. And I was kind of stunned and horrified. So I picked myself up. I was happy that I wasn't hurt. And I went to the bathroom, and then I got back in bed and I laid down, and I thought, well, I guess I'll go back to sleep now. But then part of me just said, no, do not go back to sleep. This could have been really bad. And I felt like I wanted to sort of punish myself for the mistake. I felt kind of like embarrassed and scared and ashamed maybe that despite all my self-reminders of all these safety issues, I still fell, and like maybe it was my fault. And so I kind of replayed it over and over in my head to punish myself, to remind myself to never allow that to happen again. But then also I went into this typical sleep processing that I do that's sort of like, what does this mean? What is the lesson here? What am I meant to learn from this accident? And I felt kind of stumped, and I had this feeling that there's something that my subconscious is trying to tell me that I'm not getting. I'm not seeing the message. And this is my automatic to sleep process in this way. I see meaning everywhere. And maybe it's bullshit, because maybe sometimes sometimes shit just happens. Like, not everything is an omen. Not everything is a message from God. Sometimes you just fall. Sometimes you just get struck by lightning. It doesn't mean anything. But I tend to reach for meaning everywhere. But with this one, I felt kind of stumped and stuck, and I still kind of do. There's some message that I'm supposed to understand from this accident. So sometimes shit just happens, but I think a lot of times an accident can be a message from the subconscious. Especially think of like a sleep last person. Like, you go, go, go. You don't stop. You don't take time for yourself, and then bam, you break your leg. And then you're forced to lay in bed and sleep process. So if you don't sleep process, the sleep processing will come to you and just slap you upside the head. But I think sometimes that can happen. If you are a really accident prone person, like, maybe there's a reason. Maybe there is some subconscious reason that you keep injuring yourself. So I laid there in bed searching for meaning, and I can think of all the obvious things, like I'm getting older. Maybe I have a fear of getting older. It's becoming harder for me to recover from sports injuries. Balance becomes an issue when you get older. Maybe I'm afraid of that. I feel like I'm not really afraid of death at all, but maybe subconsciously I am. And this is like a warning. Like, remember, bad things can happen. Remember, you're going to die. Maybe I'm more afraid of it than I realize. But then here's the weird thing that happened. Like, 2 days after I had this fall, an elderly friend of ours fell and broke her collarbone. And I was just like, where are all these falling messages coming from? So this happened to Russ's employer, but she's also like a family friend. She's like his best friend, and so he's taking care of her a lot because her collarbone's broken and she can't get into the orthopedist for like another week. But part of my sleep processing is noticing themes. So I fell, she fell. There's a lot of falling messages and falling energy around me. What does it mean? And then, of course, maybe it doesn't mean anything. Maybe it's just a coincidence. Like, a more rational person would say, like, no, that's not a thing. Sometimes you just fall. Shit happens. So the mechanism that I have that finds meaning is kind of in overdrive, and I'm sure sometimes it is bullshit, but I think sometimes it's not. I think it can potentially be a good mechanism to have to receive messages from the universe. That's what it feels like to me. But it doesn't necessarily need to be interpreted that way. It can be messages from your subconscious, or just, we talk a lot in Objective Personality System about the voids that we're leaving, and the world will show you the voids that you're leaving. And it could be in the way that other people fill in those voids, or it could just be little things that happen that you could say, oh, well, that's a coincidence, or like, no, shit just happens. But it's also kind of the world around you, your external circumstances, sending you the message that, like, oh, you're dropping the ball here, or you're dropping the ball over there. And so that's why these things happen. So I think it is good to look at meaning and read it and interpret circumstances and learn from them if there is a lesson to learn. So anyway, this is a really weird video because I don't have a conclusion. It's also weird that I think it's so weird. Like, so you fell. Like, people fall all the time. I don't know why I'm so stuck on this, but I'm just really stuck in feeling that there's some meaning here and some lesson that I'm supposed to learn that I can't quite see. And that's unusual because my sleep processing is so well exercised that it does not usually take me this long. I have a lot of dreams and I'll wake up and I'll be like, oh yeah, that happened. Like, oh yeah, I got it. I know what that means. I'm really quick to conclude what the meaning is because I can read patterns and symbols really well. But this time I'm just stumped. So yeah, weird video. Probably pretty boring. Hey, you guys, I fell in the middle of the night and landed on a tile floor. Isn't that interesting? Yeah.